Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Muhammad Abdullah Al Mamun. My student ID is 2010137154. Now I am enrolled Department of Banking and Insurance, University of Rajshahi. Today I will present my presentation on the exchange rate system of Bangladesh, evaluation mechanism and policy implication. Prepared for the course Foreign Exchange Management under the supervision of Mohammad Shadat Hussain sir. Let us begin. These presentations cover 8 sections: introductions, historical evaluations, current mechanism, key determinants, recent challenges, comparative analysis, policy recommendations, and conclusion. Let us go through them by one. Introduction. What is exchange rate? The exchange rate is the price of one currency in terms of another. For Bangladesh, how many taka it takes to buy one US dollar. It is one of the most critical microeconomics variable because it affects four major areas of our country. First, trade. A weaker taka takes our garments exporters cheaper and more competitive globally, but makes imports like fuel and machinery more expensive. Second, investment. A stable exchange rate attracts foreign direct investment. Volatility drives investor away. Third, inflation. When taka depreciates, import price rise, feeding directly into cost domestic inflations and rising the most of living for ordinary people. Fourth, Bangladesh's specific context. We are a trade dependent economy. Over 80% of our export earnings are from the RMG sector, and we also depend on heavily remittance from millions of workers abroad. This makes exchange rate stability not just a technical issue, it is a matter of livelihood for millions of Bangladeshis. Historical evolution. Bangladesh exchange rate historically can divided into five eras. Era 1, fixed exchange rate 1972 to 1979. After independence, the taka was pegged to the British pound with strict capital controls. This caused dollar shortage and gave rise to hundi market, black market. Era 2, basket bag 1979 to 2003, the taka was linked to a trade weight basket of currencies. The dollar replaced the pound in 1893 as the primary interventions currency. Bangladesh Bank executed over 80 devaluations during the period to maintain exports competitiveness. Era 3, Managed float 2003 to 2024. In May 2003, Bangladesh officially adopted a floating exchange rate, supported by the IMF. In reality, however, it was a de facto managed pact, with Bangladesh Bank regularly buying and selling dollars to control the rate. This worked until the global shocks of 2022, when reserve fell sharply and a large gap emerged between the official bank rate and the informal hundi rate. Era 4, Crawling peg, May 2024 to May 2025. To address the reserve crisis, Bangladesh Bank introduced a crawling peg with a midpoint corridors of taka 170 to 190 per dollar, a transactional arrangement to gradually align the taka with its true market value. Era 5, Free floating market, May 2022 it present. Last month, Bangladesh Bank completely abandoned the corridor and moved to a freely marketed determined system. This unlocked delay of the 4.7 billion IMF loan package and normalized formal remittance flow. Today, the taka trades at approximately taka 122.75 per US dollar. Now, the core mechanism. Under the current free floating system, the mechanism works through three core pillars. First, market driven policies or market driven price discovery. Commercial banks set their own rates freely, no government mandates, floors or ceilings. Second, action based intervention. Bangladesh Bank no longer fixes prices. It uses multiple price actions to buy or sell dollars only to smooth extreme evaluation volatility, like a stock absorber, like a shock absorber, not a brake. Third, daily reference rate. Bangladesh Bank published a daily spot reference rate based on actual interbank transactions as an informational benchmark only, not a mandate price. The results have been positive. Bangladesh Bank has shifted from a net seller to a net buyer of dollars, purchasing over 6.35 billion from commercial bank, actively rebuilding reserve. Monthly remittance have surged to over 3.42 billion as the gap between official and hundi rate has closed. However, the IMF notes the framework is still incomplete. Bangladesh Bank actions Bangladesh Bank auctions appear to subtly anchor the taka within a preferred range to control inflation. Full flexibility remains a work in process or progress. Now, the key determinants. What forces determine whether the taka rises or falls? I have organized them into three groups. You can also see the BDT to USD trend chart on the screen, which shows the taka depreciating from taka 57 in 2003 to over 122 today. Now supply side inflows. Forces that brings dollars and strengthen the taka. RMG sector earnings, remittance inflows from workers abroad and foreign direct investment are supply side inflows. Demand side outflows. Forces that drain dollars out and weaken the taka. Our persistent trade deficit, capital machinery imports, and energy imports like petroleum, LNG, and fertilizer are the demand side of our outflows. Monetary factors. Domestic inflation erodes the taka's value. Bangladesh Bank policy repo rate of 10% is designed to cool credit expansion, and the level of foreign exchange reserve determines the central bank's capacity to absorb shocks. The long-term depreciations visible in the chart is a direct reflection of persistent inflation's differential and structural trade deficits over 2 decades. Now, the recent challenges. Between 2022 and 2025, the taka lost nearly 30% of its value. Five major shocks explained in this session. COVID-19, when global lockdowns closed, informal Hundis network remittance surged through formal channels, pushing reserve to a historical high of 48 billion in August 2021. Bangladesh Bank kept the taka artificially overvalued at around taka 85 to 86. When lockdown ended, the sudden explosions in import demand exposed these overvaluations and created a severe dollar shortage. Now, Russia-Ukraine war. The war triggered global uncertainty, strengthened the US dollar, and caused capital to flee from emerging markets like Bangladesh, putting intense depreciation pressure on the taka. Higher energy prices, surging LNG, petroleum, and fertilized prices doubled Bangladesh's import bill also overnight, create massive non-discretionary demand for the US dollar, reserve depletion. Bangladesh Bank inject over 22 billion defending the taka, causing reserve to drop below 20 billion. This triggered speculative panic. Exporters delayed bringing earning home, and worker ordered dollars, creating a destructive feeding loop. External debt servicing. Major infrastructure projects like Podda Bridge, Rupur nuclear plant, Dhaka Metro entered their repayment windows with global interest rate above 5%. Debt servicing create a permanent dollar outflow, locking the taka in a structural depreciation circle. Now, competitive analysis. Let me place Bangladesh alongside India, Vietnam, and Sri Lanka across four key indicators. On exchange rate regime, Bangladesh is now free floating, India uses managed float, and Vietnam uses crawling peg, and Sri Lanka is recovering from its 2022 crisis. On export diversifications, this is Bangladesh's most critical weakness. Our RMG sector accounts for over 80% of exporters. India and Vietnam are highly diversified across IT and electronics, pharmaceuticals, and manufacturing, meaning they can absorb sector specific shocks that would devastate Bangladesh. On foreign exchange reserve, Bangladesh holds roughly 3 to 4 months of import covers. India holds over 10 months. Vietnam holds 4 to 5th month, and Sri Lanka has critically depleted reserve before its default. On external debt risks, Bangladesh's depth is lower to medium risk because it is dominated by concessional loans from the World Bank, ADB, and JICA. Sri Lanka relied on expensive commercial sovereign bond and default when its foreign currency's income dried up. The key insights Bangladesh avoid Sri Lanka's fate through three specific factors. First, concessional debt management, consistent remittance flow, and the preemptive decisions to secure the 4.7 billion IMF anchor before reserve hit zero. Sri Lanka waited too long. Bangladesh acted early. Now, policy recommendations. Based on this analysis, I present 6 policy recommendations in 3 categories. First, real sector reforms. Export diversifications, extend the holidays and subsidize to pharmaceuticals, ICT, leather, shipbuilding, and light engineering to reduce dangerous over dependence on RMG. And foreign direct investment attraction. Digitalize the BIDA one-stop portal to complete a special economic zone with reliable infrastructure to replicate Vietnam electronic manufacturing success. Financial management. The reserve strength target 5 to 6 months of import cover through market aligned dollar purchase program during trade surpluses, and boost formal remittance. Partner with fintech firms to create real-time mobile transactions app connected directly to MFS wallet like bKash with incentives to shift workers away from Hundi network, and industrial reforms. First, exchange rate transparency. Continue publishing real-time interbank reference rate with no implied price caps, allowing true market price discovery. And forex risk instrument. Develop forward contracts, currency options, and cross-currency swaps so that importers and exporters can hedge against exchange rate volatility, making business planning more stable. And across all of this, improve monetary fiscal coordination is essential. Bangladesh Bank tight 10% repo rate must be supported by fiscal discipline and the Ministry of Finance. And last of all, conclusions. Let me conclude the four key takeaways. 1. Bangladesh exchange rate has transformed from a fixed peg in 1972 to a fully free floating market in May 2025, a journey shaped by decades from reform, crisis, and learning. Second, today the Taka trades in Taka 122.75 per dollar. Bangladesh Bank has rebuilt reserve to over 13 billion by becoming a net worth buyer. And third, compared to regional peers, Bangladesh faces export concentrations, risks, and limited reserve buffers, but demonstrate genuine reliance by avoiding Sri Lanka catastrophic collapse thanks to constitutional depth, remittance, and proactive IMF engagement. And fourth, the priority reforms are clear: export diversifications, stronger reserve, formal remittance channel, and foreign exchange hedging instruments. Bangladesh's exchange rate story is ultimately the story of a young nation's learning to manage its place in the global economic with this with describing policies execution. Bangladesh is well positioned to move from crisis driven management to proactive stability by given oath. That conclude my presentation. Thank you everyone. I am sincerely thanked Mohammad Shadat Hussain sir for his guidance and thank all of you for your attention.